Hi everyone. Today we're doing a construction, occupational safety, and health refresher quiz. Let's see how many you can get right. Get ready, here's the first question. Primary cause of accident that is characterized by the human action, that departs from a standard or written job procedure or common practice, safety rules, regulations, or instructions. The physical or chemical property of a material, machine, or the environment which could result in injury to a person, damage or destruction to property, or other forms of losses. A risk associated with poorly guarded or dangerous equipment and machinery that may cause injury. A risk associated with exposure to dangerous substance or conditions that may cause illness/disease. In demolition safety, this control is characterized by ensuring separation public and between the demolition activities. Which control is demonstrated by the use of power shears in place of grinding or oxyacetylene cutting where there is a risk of fire. Installation of scaffolds, platforms, guardrails, shoring, and bracing to support loads are examples of this type of risk control. This type of risk control includes limiting the amount of time a person is exposed to a particular hazard, implementing safe working procedures for all hazardous tasks, and training all personnel. Engineering control, or a set of PPEs, prevents you from falling like guardrails, covers, restraints, etc. An engineering control, or PPE set that protect you after you fall, which is characterized by stopping the fall before you hit the surface, like net, mesh, or body harness. A formal process to identify potential hazards related to an activity or operation, analyze the level of risk associated with those hazards, and propose controls to reduce the level of risks. A formal process to identify the dangers of specific job tasks in order to reduce the risk of injury to workers. It involves breaking down the steps of performing a job, identifying hazards at each step, and creating controls to keep workers safe while performing that task. In the OSH standard, workrooms shall be at least how many meters in height from the floor to the ceiling? Where the rooms are air-conditioned and the process allows free movement, existing heights of not less than how many meters may be allowed? The maximum number of persons employed in a workroom area shall not exceed one person per how many cubic meters? The minimum width of passageways between machinery or equipment should not be less than how many meters? According to the OSH standard, standard railings shall be at least how many meters from the floor level to the upper surface of the top rail? What is the maximum spacing of posts in a standard railing? For pipe railings, the top rails and posts of metal pipes should be at least how many millimeters in diameter? All stairs, platform, and landings shall be of sufficient strength to sustain safely a live load of not less than 490 kilograms per square meter with what factor of safety? According to OSH standards, this shall be the minimum width of stairs, including handrails. This is the minimum width of stairs without the handrails. Which of the following stairway slope fits the criteria defined in the OSH standards for stair pitch? Which of the following pitch qualifies for ramp installation? In a pitch of more than 40 degrees, what should be provided instead of stairs? What is the maximum clear height between stairway landings? According to OSH standard, headroom shall be provided at all points in the stairwell. What is the minimum vertical clearance from the top of the tread in line with the face of the riser? This is the minimum dimension of treads, exclusive of nosing and projections. The riser should have a maximum height of how many meters? What is the maximum pitch for a fixed ladder? For a fixed ladder used to ascend height of more than 20 meters, at what height should landing be provided? This is the vertical member of shoring and timbering which directly resists pressure from side of an excavation. It is the longitudinal member of shoring and timbering which directly resists pressure from sheathing. It is the transverse member of shoring and timbering which directly resists pressure from sheathing or wales. A general term used to describe a temporary structure of timber or metalwork with a platform used in the construction, alteration, or demolition of a building, or other maintenance work used to support workers or to allow the hoisting and lowering of workers, their tools and materials. A scaffold hanging by means of ropes or chains, capable of being lowered or raised by winch, pulley, block, or such other means. A platform supported by a single row of uprights or standards tied along the wall, connected horizontally by a ledger, and supporting putlogs which rests on ledger on one side and in holes left in walls on the other. A platform supported on two rows of uprights or standards, parallel to the wall of a building connected by horizontal ledgers, and is independent from the building wall. It is the vertical member of scaffold transmitting the load to the ground or to a base plate. A scaffold bracing, which extends horizontally from standard to standard, forming right angles with the putlogs, and forms a tie between the standards. A scaffold member spanning between a ledger and a building wall, or between two ledgers, upon which the platform rests. a scaffold member that holds standards or uprights in a fixed position to prevent any lateral movement. In excavation safety, adequate shoring and timbering to prevent collapse shall be provided for excavation of depth more than how many meters? At what excavation depth should the services of a structural engineer for the design of the excavation be required? Tools or materials shall be kept a minimum of how many meters away from the edge of the excavation to prevent their being knocked down into the excavation. At what minimum distance from a 9-meter deep excavation should a vehicle or other machinery be driven, operated, or located, measured from the edge of the excavation? Open excavation of over 1 meter, deep shall be provided with what in case of flooding or collapse of the excavation work. The ladder provided as ingress or egress in an excavation shall extend at least how many meters above the top of the excavation to provide a firm handhold when stepping on or off the ladder. Timber/bamboo scaffoldings shall be limited to a height of how many meters from the ground or base? What scaffolding materials shall be used at heights over 20 meters? In the construction of timber scaffolds, the size of the standard shall not be less than 8.9 centimeters in diameter, or its equivalent, and when it is necessary to extend a standard, the overlap shall not be less than how many meters? In scaffolds platform for painters, decorators, and similar types of workers, when the platform is not more than 2 meters above the ground floor, what is the minimum width of the platform? For platforms used by men, tools, and materials that is more than 2 meters above the ground or floor, the minimum platform width is fall protection equipment shall be required when working at what minimum height? At what height shall workers be required to use fall arrest equipment? Otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines. This policy issuance institutes consolidates labor and social laws to afford protection to labor, promote employment and human resources development, and ensure industrial peace based on social justice. An act strengthening compliance with occupational safety and health standards and providing penalties for violations thereof. This policy issuance defines and enumerates the implementing rules and regulations of the Act strengthening compliance with OSH standards. This entity shall set and enforce mandatory occupational safety and health standards to eliminate or reduce occupational safety and health hazards in all workplaces. This entity is responsible for the conduct of continuing studies and research to develop innovative methods, techniques, and approaches for dealing with occupational safety and health problems. This entity shall be solely responsible for the administration and enforcement of OSH laws, regulations, and standards in all establishments and workplaces. This entity may collect reasonable fees for the inspection of steam boilers, pressure vessels and pipings and electrical installations, the test and approval for safe use of materials, equipment and other safety devices, and the approval of plans for such materials, equipment, and devices. Any person trained and duly certified to administer first aid by the Philippine Red Cross or any organization authorized by DOLE's secretary. A qualified first aider, nurse, dentist, or physician engaged by the employer to provide occupational health services in the establishment, project, site, or workplace. A qualified safety officer for, or its equivalent, duly certified by DOLE to perform and/or render consultative services on occupational safety and health in at least 2 fields of specialization as determined by DOLE. A qualified safety officer 3, or its equivalent, duly certified by DOLE to render occupational safety and health services in a defined and specific scope or core competency. A set of rules issued by DOA which mandates the adoption and use of appropriate practices, means, methods, operations, or processes, and working conditions reasonably necessary to ensure safe and healthful employment. A regular and critical examination of project sites, safety programs, records, and management performance on program standards on safety and health conducted by the safety officer. A body created within the workplace, tasked with the authority to plan, develop, and implement OSH policies and programs, monitor and evaluate the OSH program, and inspect and investigate all aspects of the work pertaining to the safety and health of workers. A set of detailed rules to govern company policies, processes, and practices in all economic activities to conform with OSH standards, including the personnel responsible and penalties for any violation thereof. Establishments, projects, sites, and all other places where work is being undertaken, wherein the number of employees, nature of operations, and the risks or hazards involved in the business required compliance with the provisions of RA 11058. A workplace where there is low level of danger or exposure to safety and health hazards and not likely or with low probability to result in accident, harm, or injury or illness. A workplace where there is moderate exposure to safety and health hazards and with probability of an accident, injury, or illness if no preventative or control measures are in place. Specialized clothing or equipment designed to protect workers against safety and health hazards that may cause serious workplace injuries and illness, i.e., protection for the body, eyes, head, face, hands, feet, ears, etc. If an OSH committee was to be formed, who will act as the chairperson? Who should be the secretary of the OSH committee? What color should be used for safety signs relating to fire protection and combustion warning? What color should be used to direct traffic in the workplace? What color should be used for alert to designate dangerous parts of machines or energized equipment which may cause injury or hazard? And that's a wrap for our construction occupational safety and health refresher quiz. How many did you get? Comment your score below and let's see who got them all.